Welcome, dear listener, to another quiet journey. Tonight, you and I sit together not at the edge of a desert, nor by the crackle of a single flame, but beneath the great canopy of a forest. The branches stretch above us, their leaves whispering softly in the night air. The ground is soft beneath us, cushioned by moss and fallen leaves, steady and cool. All around, the forest hums quietly, not with the noise of day, but with the gentlest breath of night. A cricket in the distance, the soft rustle of a breeze, the faint sigh of wood settling. The world outside this moment may still feel heavy to you, full of tasks not finished, words not said, thoughts not calmed. But here, beneath these branches, you are safe. The forest will hold you, and tonight, it will carry you into rest. Before we begin, if these calm journeys bring you peace, if these quiet stories help you let go of the weight you carry, I would like to ask you now, while your eyes are still open, to like this video and to subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep these journeys alive, it helps us keep the forest sounds flowing, and it lets this small fire of calm spread further to others who need it. And I would love to know, where are you listening from tonight? What surrounds you? A quiet bedroom, a distant city, perhaps even a balcony where the night air brushes against your skin. Or maybe, if you are very lucky, you are already beneath trees, with real forest breath weaving around you. Share it if you wish, so that others may know they are not alone in the night. The night is here, and you are safe. Wherever you are, in a room of your own, in a camp beneath the stars, or in a city that has not yet grown quiet, this moment belongs to you. You have carried the burdens of your day, and now you may set them down. Let your body soften. Let your thoughts loosen. Feel the surface beneath you hold you steady. Listen for the quiet, for the stillness waiting around you. The forest has its way of teaching stillness. Each tree waits through storm and season. Each stream slows in winter, quickens in spring. Each leaf falls when it is ready, and no sooner. And tonight, the forest invites you to do the same. To wait. To soften. To let go. Let your shoulders relax. Let your breath deepen. Let your jaw release. This moment is not for rushing. It is for resting. And if your mind still races, if your thoughts still circle, if the noise of the day clings to you like cobweb, remember, even the forest does not silence itself all at once. It begins with one branch, one leaf, one hush at a time. So let yourself drift slowly. You do not need to be silent all at once. You only need to soften, step by step, breath by breath. If your boss gave you a hard time today, be glad at least he is not a pharaoh. In the courts of kings, disobedience was not met with gentle corrections or quiet meetings. It was met with silence, with exile, sometimes with worse. If you are restless now, if your shoulders still ache with the weight of today's demands, you would not last long in the palaces of ancient rulers. So let it go. The forest does not demand perfection of you. It only asks that you rest. Breathe deeply. Feel the night settle around you. Feel the forest lean closer. The wind moves through the branches above. Soft, steady. It brushes against your skin. It carries the scent of pine, of soil, of leaves that have waited all day to fall. It carries you. Across centuries, across kingdoms, across empires. It whispers of cycles older than memory. Empires rise. Empires fall. But the wind endures. The forest endures. Always whispering. Always steady. Always here. And tonight, it is here for you. The forest will be your companion. It will hold you, guide you, teach you through its rhythms. And now, as your eyes grow heavy, as your breath steadies, as your mind softens into stillness, we begin. Nature has always spoken in rhythms. Dawn rising. Dusk fading. Spring blooming. Winter resting. Every leaf, every river, every star follows patterns older than memory. And so do people. The tribes that gathered around fire. The kingdoms that grew beside rivers. The empires that rose toward the sun. All of them mirrored the same natural cycles. First there is birth. Fragile, small, full of promise. Then growth. Bold, confident, certain. Then strength. The crown of day, when all seems unshakable. And then shadows. Storms. Decline. Silence. Yet silence is not the end. From decay comes seed. From seed comes return. From return comes strength again. This is the cycle of nature. And it is the cycle of power. The dawn of the forest is the dawn of tribes. The flood of rivers is the rise of kingdoms. The blaze of noon is the empire at its peak. And the stillness of winter is collapse, waiting to be reborn. Empires, like forests, never truly vanish. They change. They rest. They prepare. And then they return in new form, as spring returns after snow. Tonight, beneath the quiet breath of trees, we follow these cycles together. From the first fragile light, to the fullness of noon, to the silence of winter, and to the eternal return of spring. It is not the story of one empire or one land. It is the story of all of them. And in its quiet turning, it is also the story of us. Dawn has always been the gentlest of cycles. It does not rush upon the world. It does not shout. It arrives quietly. First a paling at the horizon. Then a faint blush upon the clouds. Then a chorus of birds, cautious at first, then fuller. Until light softens the darkness, and the forest, still wet with dew, begins to glow. This rhythm is older than memory, older than language. And it is here, in the fragile light of dawn, that we find the beginnings of human power. Not power as we think of it now, with armies, walls, and crowns, but a softer power, the power of survival, the power of belonging, the power of the first gathering. Imagine the earliest people stirring from sleep as dawn crept across the land. The embers of last night's fire are coaxed gently back to flame. The smoke rises, curling into cool morning air. Around it, families draw close, warming hands, whispering softly, preparing for the day ahead. This fire is more than warmth. It is a center, a place to return to, a place where stories are told and remembered. And in that circle, power is born. Not power to conquer, but power to protect. Not power to command, but power to remind. The elder who recalls the last great winter. The hunter who knows the tracks of deer and the habits of wolves. The mother who teaches children the rhythm of planting, of gathering, of weaving. These are the first leaders. Not kings. Not rulers. But guides. And their guidance carries the tribe through the fragility of dawn. For dawn is always fragile. The light is soft. Shadows are long. Danger still lingers near. So too with the first tribes. Hunger waits if the hunt fails. Storms can scatter shelters. Other groups may approach, uncertain, watchful, protective of their own fires. And yet, in the midst of this fragility, dawn carries its own strength. It promises a day ahead. It whispers that from small beginnings, greater things can grow. The first shelters were simple. Skins stretched over wood, branches tied with cord. Yet they gave a sense of place. The first tools were stone and bone. Yet in the repeated shaping of them came skill. The first paths were nothing more than worn grass between huts. Yet in their repetition came the outline of a village. And from village, in time, came the possibility of more. But in these earliest hours, the lesson of dawn is clear. That greatness begins quietly. It does not burst into being complete. It grows from embers, from whispers, from fragile first steps. The forest teaches this too. Each great tree began as a seed so small it could be carried unnoticed on the wind. Each river began as a trickle, hidden beneath stone. Each mountain began as a grain, pressed slowly upward by forces unseen. So too with human power. It began not in marble halls, but in firelit circles. It began not in golden crowns, but in remembered stories. It began not in conquest, but in survival shared together. The dawn of tribes was the dawn of everything to come. The sun lifts higher through the branches. The forest warms. Birdsong swells louder. And we remember. That dawn is not only the beginning of a day. It is the beginning of a story. A story that will move through noon, through dusk, through silence. A story that will rise, flourish, decline, and return. Just as every empire has. And just as every empire will again. Rivers have always been the quiet architects of growth. They do not command. They do not conquer. They simply flow. And yet, where water moves, life follows. The forest knows this. Streams cut valleys, pools gather fish, roots bend toward damp soil. And people, too, learned early that water meant survival. Where rivers ran, families built their huts. Where rivers spread their silt, farmers planted their fields. Where rivers carried boats, neighbors became traders, and strangers became allies. This is how tribes became kingdoms. How villages became cities. How growth, slow and steady, gathered the shape of power. The Nile was the most patient teacher. Each year, its waters rose, spilled across the banks, and then retreated. In their wake lay a blanket of black, rich soil, thick with promise. The people of Egypt called it a gift, and in truth, it was. With that gift came grain. With grain came surplus. With surplus came memory, record, and rule. The Nile taught them time. Flood season, planting season, harvest season. Repeated, year after year. That rhythm made calendars possible. It made ritual possible. It gave dynasties a steady spine. Power along the Nile was never just about kings or crowns. It was about water returning, always returning. Between the Tigris and the Euphrates, the story was different. Here the floods were less gentle, less predictable. Sometimes too much. Sometimes too little. So people dug canals, built levees, carved channels into clay. They turned unruly water into measured fields. And with measurement came writing. The first tablets carried numbers for grain, marks for jars of oil, tallies of livestock. From clay symbols, law began. From law, priesthoods and offices. From offices, the first outlines of cities. The rivers of Mesopotamia taught resilience, and the strength that comes from order born of chaos. Far to the east, the Yellow River carried another lesson. Its waters could feed or destroy. Villages flourished when its silt was kind, and vanished when its floods grew fierce. So people built embankments, dug channels, repaired them year after year. To live there was to live humbly, to remember that no emperor, no dynasty, no throne could ignore the river's will. Water gave legitimacy. A ruler who managed floods, who opened granaries when crops failed, who repaired canals after storms, such a ruler was obeyed. Not out of fear, but out of trust. Even the greatest dynasties bowed first to water. And along the Indus, another rhythm took hold. Cities rose with neat streets, wells, and drains. Order was visible everywhere. Not in crowns, but in bricks, in right angles, in courtyards that welcomed trade. Here the river was not only food. It was design. It gave shape to how people lived together, how they shared water, how they planned for generations ahead. Rivers taught time. Not in hours or minutes, but in seasons. The rise of water, the return of rains, the waiting of floods, the patience of planting and harvest. From this rhythm came repetition. And from repetition came ritual. Planting at the same moment each year. Cutting canals in the same season. Gathering in markets at the same bends of the river. Slowly, repetition became memory. Memory became tradition. Tradition became the quiet root of power. Growth was not sudden. It was steady. A small canal became a larger one. A single hut became a cluster of homes. A market stall became a square. A square became a temple. And around the temple, a city formed. At every step, the river was present, carrying reeds for weaving, clay for bricks, fish for food, goods and stories from faraway lands. Rivers were not only roads of trade. They were roads of thought. They carried ideas as surely as they carried boats. Songs moved with the current. Stories shifted from one bank to another. Languages blended where rivers met. A confluence was never just water meeting water. It was culture meeting culture. Markets grew at these crossings. Goods exchanged, but so did beliefs, customs, ways of living. Growth became more than survival. It became connection. The river's steady gift allowed people to look beyond today's hunger. They began to count further ahead. To plan for next year, and the year after. That planning required trust. Trust in the river, trust in one another, trust in the rules that kept the water shared and fair. And in that trust, power deepened. Not loud power, not sudden power, but power woven through repetition. When a sluice gate was lifted at the right moment, people remembered. When a canal was repaired before the rains, people remembered. When the flood came as expected, and the harvest followed, people remembered. Legitimacy was carried in water as much as in law. The forest whispers the same truth. A tree grows tall not from one burst of rain, but from years of water drawn steadily through its roots. An empire grows not from one battle, but from years of grain, years of steady floods, years of rivers keeping their quiet promises. So growth, in its true form, is not a trumpet. It is a hum. The hum of paddles against water. The hum of grain poured into storage. The hum of voices in a market along the bank. It is soft, but it is steady. And in that steadiness, kingdoms took shape. The Nile, the Tigris, the Euphrates, the Yellow River, the Indus. all of them whispering the same lesson. That growth begins not in crowns, but in water. That power, before it was ever carved in stone, was written first in rivers. Spring is the season of confidence. The forest shows it first. After the silence of winter, after the patience of seeds hidden in soil, the world suddenly leans forward. Buds open, not one at a time, but in thousands. Branches, once bare, dress themselves in green. Meadows shine with wildflowers, colors spreading like quiet fire. Birdsong fills the air as though every throat has remembered its voice at once. This is not the fragile dawn, not the uncertain whisper of first light. This is growth stepping outward, sure of itself, certain that the world belongs to it. And human power has always mirrored this season. Tribes, once small, begin to reach further. Villages gather wealth enough to look beyond survival. Cities stretch their walls wider, send ships across seas, open roads to distant hills. The spring of power is expansion. In this season, people do not only live, they begin to believe they can flourish. In Greece, city-states grew restless. Athens, once a cluster of families around a rocky hill, began to stretch outward. Ships carried its people to distant shores, colonies planted like new shoots across the Mediterranean. Its voice became philosophy, its art became stone that still speaks. Persia, too, moved outward in its spring. Great roads were cut through mountains and deserts. Banners carried across plains that seemed endless. A courier on horseback could bring news from one edge of the empire to the other in days, not months. Expansion was not only land taken, it was connection built. And far to the east, Han China flourished. Its spring was wide, confident. Trade routes stretched outward, silk carried to lands that had never seen such threads. Ideas moved with goods. Medicines, inventions, philosophies, all borne along roads like pollen carried by wind. Everywhere, the spring of expansion whispered the same promise: that what was small can become vast, that what was local can become global, that the circle of firelight can grow into the circle of empire. The forest reminds us, though, that spring is not without risk. New leaves are delicate. New branches bend easily. New blooms may fall before seed has formed. So too with empires. Expansion brings wealth, but also weight. Each new city demands food. Each new road demands soldiers. Each new conquest demands loyalty. The crown grows heavier as the borders grow wider. But in the moment of spring itself, none of this is seen. The forest glows, the air hums with bees, the rivers run full. And in the same way, empires in their spring glow with confidence. Their people believe growth will never end. Their rulers believe the sun itself has chosen their path. It is a season of joy, of certainty, of outward strength. And it is beautiful, even knowing what must follow. Think of the meadow in spring. Bright with color, alive with sound. Insects at work. Birds weaving nests. Animals grazing in abundance. Everywhere is energy, movement, promise. So it was with Athens, sending ships to Sicily and beyond. So it was with Persia, linking east and west with a royal road. So it was with Han China, steady and strong, opening the Silk Road that would tie distant lands together. Each empire, in its spring, believed the world itself was opening. And for a time, it was true. Spring is not a trumpet, but it is louder than dawn. It speaks not in whispers, but in songs. It tells us that growth is possible. That confidence can bloom. That fragility can give way to strength. The forest hums with this truth. And history hums with it too. The spring of expansion is the season when empires learn to step beyond themselves. And though we know shadows must one day follow, for now the branches are green, the fields are wide, and the roads stretch outward, unafraid. Midday is the crown of the day. The sun stands high above the forest. Its light pours down without hesitation. Its warmth covers everything equally. There are few shadows at noon. The world feels full, complete, certain. This is the season of strength. The forest hums in confidence. Birds sing not just to call, but to claim. Branches do not tremble, they stretch wide, bold, certain. The air is alive with movement, but without hurry. It feels as if the light will last forever. And so it is with empires. Rome at its peak was midday itself. Roads stretched across continents, straight and unbroken. Legions marched with discipline, banners lifted, orders obeyed without question. Markets thrived with goods from Spain, Africa, Greece, the East. Temples and forums rang with voices, law and debate shaping a world that believed itself eternal. The Mediterranean was not a sea to Rome. It was a lake, bordered on every side by its own strength. The empire glowed, like the sun at noon. Han China, too, stood in its full brightness. Walls stretched like mountains across the horizon. Scholars wrote with steady hands, preserving memory in books of bamboo and silk. Trade flourished along the Silk Road, silk and spices, jade and ideas moving as steadily as caravans could carry them. It was a time of invention, of discovery, of certainty. The court in Chang'an shone as brightly as Rome. And people believed that order, like the sun, would endure forever. Persia before them had glowed the same. Kings sat in palaces of stone and gold. Messengers rode across plains and deserts, bringing news from one end of the empire to the other in days, not months. The royal road carried merchants, soldiers, ideas. And everywhere, the presence of order. At its height, Persia seemed broad as the horizon itself. It too believed the noon would not fade. Midday is the season of confidence. The forest glows. The leaves shimmer. The branches are steady, full, alive. There is a deep beauty in this moment. For in strength, the world feels safe. The people of empires at their height believed the same. That their walls could not fall. That their markets would always be full. That their rulers were chosen by gods or destiny itself. Midday carries the illusion of permanence. And yet, the forest reminds us that no light stays at its peak forever. Already, the sun has begun its slow descent, though no eye notices it. Already, shadows stretch longer, though they are still faint. The noon feels eternal, but it is not. Still, there is a gift in this season. The gift of fullness, of balance, of confidence. For a moment, the cycle reaches its widest breadth. And it is right to pause here. To honor the beauty of Rome at its height. To admire the strength of Han China. To remember the brilliance of Persia. For even though we know dusk will come, even though we know storms and decline wait ahead, there is still wonder in the crown of day. Midday strength is a reminder that cycles are not only endings. They are also peaks. And those peaks are worth remembering. Every cycle carries its turning. Even at the brightest hour, the forest knows the truth. The sun does not linger at the crown of sky. Its light leans slowly westward. Its brilliance softens, its edges grow longer. The shadows begin. They are gentle at first. Faint. Hardly noticed. But they are there. Stretching beneath the trees. Falling across the grass. Reminding the world that noon cannot last forever. So it was with empires. Rome, strong and confident, began to feel the weight of its own size. The roads that once carried goods and soldiers also carried burdens. Taxes, quarrels, ambitions. The Senate debated endlessly. Emperors rose and fell with alarming speed. The certainty of noon gave way to whispers of dusk. The strength of Rome was not broken all at once. It was tested by its own enormity. In Han China, too, the glow of midday dimmed at the edges. Bureaucracy swelled. Officials multiplied. Scrolls and edicts grew heavier than swords. The people who had once trusted the dynasty now felt its weight upon their shoulders. Corruption crept quietly. Whispers of rebellion began in distant provinces. The empire still shone, but its light was strained. Persia before them had felt the same turning. When power stretches far, it must be held by many hands. And not all hands are steady. Governors in distant lands sought their own glory. Armies cost more to raise and feed. The center was still radiant, but the edges grew restless. The shadows lengthened, even as kings declared their strength eternal. The forest teaches this gently. When branches are full, they are also heavy. When trees spread wide, their roots must dig deeper to hold them steady. And when roots do not keep pace, the wind finds its way in. Growth carries weight, and weight must be managed. Noon feels endless. But even as the sun shines strongest, the angle changes. Shadows creep across the earth. In empires, the shadows appear as complexity. Laws multiply until they confuse. Taxes rise until they burden. Armies grow until they consume more than they protect. What once was simple becomes tangled. The elder who once guided a village becomes a bureaucracy of thousands. The path that once linked neighbors becomes a web of roads demanding endless repair. The surplus that once meant abundance becomes a treasure hoarded, envied, fought over. These are shadows. Soft at first, but deepening with every season. And yet, there is a beauty even in this stage. For shadows do not erase the light. They shape it. The forest in late afternoon glows differently. Softer. Warmer. So too, empires in their shadowed years still shine. Rome still built monuments. Still passed laws that shaped centuries. Han China still wrote philosophies, still invented, still taught. Persia still linked east and west, still carried messages across deserts and mountains. But all the while, the weight grew. The light bent. The shadows lengthened. This is the lesson of the cycle. That even at its strongest, power carries within it the seeds of strain. That fullness is never free of burden. And that dusk begins not with collapse, but with the quiet stretching of shadows. After shadows, storms often follow. The forest knows this rhythm well. Afternoon clouds gather at the edges of the sky. The air thickens, heavy with waiting. Winds stir through branches, lifting leaves that moments before were still. And then the first rumble comes. Low, distant, but certain. Soon rain will fall. Soon lightning will split the sky. Storms are part of the cycle. They do not ask permission. They do not wait for readiness. They arrive when balance must be tested. So it is with empires. Rome faced storms not of weather, but of invasion. Tribes pressed against its borders, testing the walls, the legions, the patience of the empire. At the same time, plague swept through its cities. The very markets that had once thrived became places of fear. The streets still echoed with strength, but storms unsettled what once seemed unshakable. Han China felt its own tempests. Floods ruined fields. Famine followed. Peasant uprisings rose, carrying banners of yellow, crying out that the dynasty had lost the mandate of heaven. Rebellions were not the sudden strike of lightning. They were the steady pounding of rain, washing away the soil beneath the throne. Even as officials wrote decrees, the storm outside their doors grew louder. Persia, too, was tested by storms. Armies from without challenged its borders. Alexander's lightning strike brought winds no king could control. Within, noble families wrestled for power, loyalty shifting like branches in wind. What seemed broad as the horizon fractured beneath pressure. The storm revealed what the sunshine had hidden. The forest speaks the same lesson. That storms do not create weakness. They expose it. A branch already heavy will break in wind. A tree with roots too shallow will fall in rain. But a tree with roots deep enough will bend and survive. So too with kingdoms. Some endured storms, bent but not broken. Others snapped, their crowns cast down, their walls crumbled, their memory left in fragments. Storms carry many forms. Invasions from beyond. Rebellions within. Famine from empty skies. Plague from unseen hands. All are trials. All are reminders that power is never free from test. Yet storms are not only destruction. They are also renewal. The rain nourishes as it floods. The wind clears what was weak. The lightning breaks silence, but it also brings clarity. And often, after the storm, what remains is stronger. Rome endured many storms before it finally yielded. Han China bent and broke, but new dynasties rose from the ruins. Persia fell to conquerors, but its memory seeded new worlds. The cycle continued. The forest reminds us gently that storms are frightening, but they pass. No cloud lingers forever. No rain falls without end. And though the branches may be broken, though the leaves may be stripped, the roots still hold, waiting for spring. So too with power. The storms of history remind us that nothing, not even strength at its height, is safe from trial. And yet, trials are not the end. They are part of the rhythm. They prepare the way for what comes after. Autumn arrives without hurry. It does not shout, it does not demand. It leans into the light, softening its gold, loosening what was once tight, turning certainty into something gentler. Leaves answer first. Green gives way to bronze and amber. Edges curl, veins show, a quiet fire spreads without flame. The forest does not resist, it simply allows itself to fade beautifully. The days remain warm, but shorter. Mornings arrive later, evenings sooner. Shadows lengthen, the angle of light grows kinder. The world does not stop, it gentles. Decline, in nature, is not disgrace. It is a season. A lesson in letting go well. So it is with human power. When empires enter their autumn, the change begins softly. There is still pride, still abundance, still the hum of markets and the sound of horses on stone. But beneath the color, the sap moves downward. The shine thins. The balance tilts. Autumn decline is not collapse. It is subtraction. One caravan fewer, one granary less full, one tax raised slightly, one road unrepaired, one garrison waiting longer for pay. People explain it kindly: a storm, a poor harvest, a delay in the palace. Yet the arithmetic continues, steady as dusk arriving. Rome knew this season well. The coins still shone, but thinner. Roads still stretched, but rougher. Baths were still warm, but not as warm. Soldiers still kept watch, but with fewer rations, later wages. In Han China, petitions grew like leaves in wind, circling without landing. Farmers gave more than they received. Rituals at court grew longer, as if performance could hold back the year. Persia's markets still bustled, but thinner. The royal road still ran, but dust rose higher. Tribute weighed more heavily on villages already emptied of grain. Autumn decline is a matter of detail. A road cracked but still passable. A port silted by an inch each year. A coin lighter but still exchanged. Nothing breaks at once. Instead, adjustments accumulate, like leaves falling one by one. And yet, decline is not only weakness. Often it is care. A patch here, a delay there, a smaller loaf shared kindly. Autumn is full of good intentions. Culture adapts to the season. Poets write shorter, richer lines. Craftsmen make smaller, finer things. Festivals shift from boasting to gratitude. Candles burn not to show endless light, but to honor what light remains. Ordinary people adjust with quiet generosity. Neighbors share more, families lean closer, kindness grows larger even as resources grow smaller. The forest teaches this truth. Leaves do not fall in disgrace. They fall as gift. The ground receives, roots store, branches lighten. So too with wise realms. They prune, they simplify, they prepare. They accept that autumn is not insult, but instruction. To deny autumn is to stumble. To accompany it is to keep dignity. Decline, in its gentlest form, is education. It teaches thrift without meanness, gratitude without pretense, patience without despair. It reminds rulers that conscience matters more than spectacle. That fewer trumpets and better bread endure longer than endless parades. And when dusk comes, when shutters close earlier, when streets quiet and lamps glow softer, there is a peace that belongs to this season. Not resignation, but consent. Consent to the cycle, to the turning that belongs to every tree, every city, every life. Autumn does its work well. It colors, it loosens, it prepares. Then it yields to winter's silence. Not as failure, but as rest. And just as the forest trusts the spring to return, so too do civilizations prepare the ground for what will rise again. Autumn is not the end. It is the handing over. The soft lesson that glory need not be eternal to be meaningful. Every cycle reaches stillness. The forest knows this well. After the green of summer, after the colors of autumn, there comes a season when branches stand bare. Snow lies quiet across the ground. The air grows sharp, crisp, and still. The birds fall silent, their songs replaced by the hush of wind through empty trees. This is winter. Not destruction, but rest. Not noise, but silence. Not the end, but a pause in the long rhythm. So it is with empires. Rome, once loud with markets and forums, slowly quieted. Its streets grew empty. Its aqueducts cracked, their waters no longer flowing as before. The great legions, once the pride of the world, dwindled. Some disbanded, others defeated. The empire that had declared itself eternal now faced the silence of collapse. But even in that silence, something remained. Not gone, but changed. Han China, too, faced its winter. The dynasty faltered, the court fractured, armies fought among themselves. Once glorious capitals became shadows of themselves. The mandate of heaven, once trusted, was doubted. And when faith in heaven faded, so too did faith in rule. The silence came not all at once, but step by step, village by village, until the wide empire felt as bare as a winter field. Persia, once stretching broad across deserts and mountains, also entered its winter. Conquerors arrived. Kings fell. Capitals burned. The empire's voice, once strong, grew quiet. Its palaces stood as ruins, its memory carried only in whispers. Yet even in ruins, the silence was not final. It was only part of the cycle. The forest shows the same truth. Winter does not destroy the tree. It rests it. The branches may be bare, the fields empty, the animals withdrawn. But beneath the snow, seeds wait. Beneath the frost, roots endure. Winter is not a death. It is a silence that prepares for renewal. So too with power. The winter of Rome prepared the soil for Byzantium, for medieval kingdoms, for futures it could not yet imagine. The winter of Han gave way to new dynasties. The winter of Persia fed the roots of later empires, even after its palaces fell silent. The lesson of winter is patience. To accept that silence does not mean nothing. It means waiting. It means resting. It means holding strength quietly beneath the frost. The forest, blanketed in snow, is beautiful in its silence. So too are the ruins of old empires. Columns standing alone in empty fields. Walls broken but still upright against the sky. Inscriptions weathered but not gone. They remind us that even in winter silence, memory endures. And memory itself is a seed. Winter silence is never truly empty. The forest shows this most clearly. Snow rests upon the ground, and to the eye it seems that life has gone. Branches are bare, meadows are pale, fields are stilled. But beneath the surface, something waits. Seeds lie hidden under frost, pressed into soil, their shells hard, their centers quiet. Yet inside them is the promise of green. Roots, too, continue their work. They draw what little water there is, they hold the tree steady in cold winds, they keep memory alive for the day warmth will return. Even in silence, life has not ended. It has only gone inward. So it is with power. When Rome fell into its winter, many thought the story finished. The Western Empire collapsed. Roads were abandoned, aqueducts crumbled, cities shrank into villages. But within those ashes, seeds endured. The Eastern Empire, Byzantium, rose, carrying Rome's memory into another 1,000 years. Its laws, its learning, its religion preserved. In monasteries, monks copied manuscripts by hand. Word by word, line by line, they carried forward the wisdom of Greece and Rome, even when the world outside their walls seemed broken. The seeds were small. Parchment pages, hidden libraries, whispered prayers. But they were seeds all the same. In China, after the fall of Han, the silence was deep. The dynasty that had ruled for centuries was gone. Warlords fought for power. Villages suffered famine, rebellion, hardship. And yet, within this chaos, seeds remained. New philosophies took root. Buddhism spread across the land, blending with old traditions. New dynasties slowly rose from the ashes. The culture endured, the language endured, the memory endured. Like seeds waiting under snow, China's renewal came not suddenly, but with patience. Persia, too, after conquests and collapse, left behind seeds. Even when cities burned, its memory did not vanish. Its art, its architecture, its way of governance, its traditions of kingship lived on in the empires that followed. From the ashes of Persia came new powers, carrying forward its symbols, its spirit, its wisdom. The forest explains this with quiet grace. Fire may burn a clearing, leaving only ash. The trunks may fall, the ground may blacken. But soon, seeds take root in that ash. Some are seeds that were buried before, waiting for just this moment. Others are carried on the wind, finding opportunity where destruction made space. Ash itself feeds the soil. And from what seemed an ending, a new green begins. History shows the same pattern. The ashes of Rome fed the seeds of medieval Europe. The ashes of Han fed the seeds of Tang and later dynasties. The ashes of Persia fed the seeds of future Islamic and Persianate empires. Decline is never complete. What looks like ruin is often only preparation. What looks like ending is often only transition. The lesson of seeds is patience. A seed cannot be rushed. It does not sprout in winter. It waits. It gathers strength in silence. It prepares unseen. Then, when the time is right, it opens. So too with cultures, with empires, with power. They may seem gone. Their cities abandoned, their temples broken. But their seeds wait in memory, in tradition, in the quiet persistence of people who endure. And one day, they rise again. The forest whispers this truth. Ash is not only ruin. It is soil. Winter is not only silence. It is rest. And seeds, though small, carry futures larger than their shells. So too with human power. Every collapse leaves something behind. Every silence hides renewal. Every empire leaves seeds for another age to find. Every winter carries the quiet promise of spring. The forest teaches this with patience. Snow lies heavy, the ground is hard, the air is still. Yet beneath the surface, roots hold fast. Seeds wait, silent but alive. Then slowly, the ice softens. The days lengthen by a breath each morning. Water trickles where it had frozen. And one day, almost unnoticed, the first green blade pierces the frost. A fragile stem, small, bending, yet stronger than the weight of winter above it. Spring has returned. So too in history. After the winters of empires, new life always stirs. From the ashes of Rome's collapse, Europe awoke. At first, the landscape was fractured. Kingdoms small, villages isolated, trade scarce. But slowly, green shoots emerged. Monasteries kept knowledge alive, and in time, universities grew from them. Farmers learned new methods, fields gave more, markets revived. Cathedrals rose from stone, their spires pointing upward as though to say, light returns. By the time of the Renaissance, Europe's spring was unmistakable. Art blossomed, science stirred, discovery stretched outward across seas. The long winter had given way. In China, too, after the dark silence of dynastic collapse, renewal came. The Tang dynasty rose like green from thawed soil. Poetry flourished, inventions multiplied, trade expanded, culture bloomed in brilliance. The mandate of heaven, once doubted, was restored in the faith of people who saw prosperity return. The Song dynasty followed, and though storms tested it, its spring was radiant. Paper money, printing, gunpowder, each invention a fresh shoot, reshaping the world. What seemed lost in Han's winter had returned in fuller form. Persia's renewal was no less remarkable. After its collapse, new empires grew on its soil. The memory of its kingship, its architecture, its art seeded later dynasties. The Sassanids revived its strength, the Islamic Golden Age carried its knowledge, its poetry and science influenced worlds far beyond its borders. Persia's spring was not a repetition. It was transformation. New blossoms, different in form, but carrying the same root beneath. The forest whispers this lesson. Spring does not return as a copy. It returns as something new, yet familiar. The tree that lost its leaves does not grow the same leaves again. It grows new ones. Fresh, green, but born of the same trunk, the same root, the same memory. So too with civilizations. Their springs are never identical to their pasts. They are renewals, transformations, new beginnings built upon old foundations. Rome was not reborn as Rome again, but as Europe in its many forms. Han was not reborn as Han, but as Tang, Song, and others. Persia was not reborn as Persia alone, but as a cultural spirit carried through many empires that followed. The lesson of spring's return is hope. That no silence is final. That no winter is endless. That beneath the frost, life always waits. The seeds do not forget. The roots do not release. The soil does not abandon what was placed within it. And so, the cycle continues. When spring comes, the forest hums with energy again. Birds return, their songs filling the air. Animals stir from hibernation. Flowers open, colors spreading across meadows. And people, too, awaken in history's spring. They build, they sing, they learn, they reach outward. It is as though the silence of winter gave them strength to begin anew. Spring's return is the reminder that life, that power, that culture, all of it follows the same rhythm. And though the branches may seem bare in winter, though the ruins may seem final, spring always waits. Always. Above every forest, above every city, above every throne, the sky keeps its ancient watch. It does not hurry. It does not explain. It simply opens each night like a book and turns a page of light. Stars take their places. Constellations tilt with the seasons. The pale road of the Milky Way leans across the dark like a whispered path. Nature turns beneath this canopy. Power rises and falls beneath it. But the sky, patient and vast, continues. Long before palaces, there were watchers. On riverbanks and ridges, people learned the heavens the way they learned home. Patterns stitched into memory became calendars and compasses. A star rising told when to sow. A cluster returning told when to sail. The eternal sky became timekeeper, guide, and archive. Along the Nile, priests aligned temples with the sun, marking floods and harvests. In Mesopotamia, scribes recorded eclipses and the wandering of planets, turning prediction into power. In China, emperors claimed the mandate of heaven, their calendars proof that they ruled in harmony with the sky. Across the seas, Polynesian navigators read constellations as stepping stones, steering canoes over oceans guided by light. Everywhere, the same truth held. Crowns borrowed legitimacy from the stars, for people trusted rhythms larger than human decree. And yet, the quietest lesson of the sky was humility. Under its endless vault, cities shrank to lanterns, crowns glittered and vanished beneath cloud. Owls lifted their faces to the moon and did not argue with its phase. Trees reached upward without claiming ownership of light. The forest accepted its scale. So too did the wise among humanity. The sky taught patience. A king might wish to fight through winter, but the heavens urged him home. A council might decree a month too soon, but sowing waited for the stars. Sailors far from land found courage in constellations that never failed to return. And in villages, children learned sleep by the same star touching the same ridge each evening. The sky's promises were simple: change, return, continuity. Even across cultures, the same stars held different names, yet the same meaning. One saw a hunter, another a canoe, another a queen. The stories varied, but the pattern endured. The heavens became a commons, wide enough for all imaginations. What endured was not conquest but continuity. The sky reminded rulers that crowns are bright, but brief. It reminded farmers to trust patience, sailors to trust courage, scholars to trust wonder. It reminded every person that life is lived between returns. And still it watches. Above ruins, above villages, above forests regrown. It pours silver on palaces and cottages alike. It steadies pride and soothes despair. It teaches the oldest sentence the world knows. Everything turns, and everything returns. And above every turning, there is a light that does not need to rule in order to guide. Every cycle carries a lesson. The forest has whispered them across ages. Dawn teaches beginnings. Spring teaches growth. Noon teaches strength. Shadows teach caution. Storms teach humility. Autumn teaches letting go. Winter teaches rest. And spring again teaches renewal. These are not only the lessons of trees, rivers, and seasons. They are the lessons of people, of kingdoms, of power itself. Look closely at the forest, and you will see the whole of history mirrored. The sapling is the fragile tribe. The thickening trunk is the village made strong. The spreading canopy is the empire at its height. The falling leaf is the ruler who grows old, or the law that no longer serves. The bare branch is the collapse. The seed in soil is the beginning again. It is all one rhythm. Rome thought itself eternal. Yet the forest would have told it otherwise. Noon does not linger. Leaves must fall. Silence must come. And though Rome fell, its seeds endured. And from those seeds, Europe found its way into another spring. The Han believed heaven had granted them forever. Yet the forest would have shown them that storms must come. Roots must be tested. Branches must rest in winter before new shoots rise. And so, even in collapse, China returned, stronger in its tang and song seasons. Persia's kings carved their names in stone, certain that no conqueror could erase them. Yet the forest would have whispered that even stone is worn, even mountains change. But seeds carry memory that stone cannot. And indeed, Persia's memory lived on, flowering again and again in new forms. The lesson of nature is not despair. It is wisdom. That nothing lasts unchanged. But nothing vanishes completely. That endings are beginnings. That silence is preparation. That decline is also renewal. The forest teaches patience. A tree does not rush its spring. It waits for the right warmth, the right light. So too, cultures rise when their season is ready. No storm can stop a seed that has found its time. The forest teaches humility. The tallest tree cannot command the storm. The proudest branch cannot stop its own falling leaves. So too with kings and crowns. They may shine, they may roar, but they too bend to the rhythm of time. The forest teaches endurance. Even when branches break, the roots endure. Even when fire clears the clearing, the soil endures. Even when snow silences the meadow, the seeds endure. So too with civilizations. They may fall silent, but their memory, their wisdom, their influence, their seeds remain. And the forest teaches continuity. That the cycle never ends. Every dawn is followed by another day. Every winter is followed by another spring. So it is with power. Empires may rise, may fall, but the rhythm continues. Always. These are the lessons of nature. That power is not permanent. But it is not lost. That endings are not failures. They are transformations. That strength is not measured only in crowns and armies, but in endurance, in patience, in renewal. And if one listens closely, the forest is always whispering this truth. Every story needs its evening. The forest knows this. After dawn and daylight, after shadows and storms, after autumn's fire and winter's hush, there comes a time when the world begins to lean into rest. The air cools. The branches sway with a gentler rhythm. The colors soften. It is not ending. It is closing. The forest is not lost when night comes. It simply turns inward. Conserving, preparing, breathing slowly. So too with our story tonight. We have walked through dawn, when tribes first gathered around fire. Through rivers, when villages became kingdoms. Through spring, when empires grew outward with confidence. Through noon, when Rome, Han, and Persia glowed at their peaks. Through shadows and storms, when complexity and trial began. Through autumn, when decline taught gentleness. Through winter, when silence and collapse made room for renewal. Through seeds and spring again, when cultures rose transformed. Through the eternal sky and the lessons of nature. And now, we arrive at the quiet closing. Not with drama. Not with noise. But with reflection. The lesson of the cycle is simple, yet infinite. That power does not last in one form forever. But it does not vanish. It changes. It returns. It renews. Every dawn is born from darkness. Every river swells from small streams. Every spring rises after silence. Every empire is part of this rhythm. And every person, too. The The forest reminds us that life is not only about strength, it is about timing. A leaf that falls has not failed. It has given back to the soil. A seed that waits through winter has not been forgotten. It is gathering strength. A tree that bends in storm has not lost. It has endured. So too with people, with kingdoms, with histories. When you look back across the great empires, you see not only their rise or their fall. You see their rhythm. The Nile rising and retreating, giving life again and again. Rome's roads still walked, even after its power faded. China's dynasties shifting, yet its culture enduring. Persia's spirit carried forward, reshaped but alive. The cycles of nature are the cycles of power. And both remind us that nothing is wasted. That endings are beginnings. That silence is only another kind of music. The forest grows quieter now. The birds soften their calls. The wind gentles. The last light fades through the branches. Night is near. But night is not loss. It is rest. And tomorrow, the rhythm will begin again. So let this story rest now. Let the forest carry its wisdom into your dreams. Power rises, power falls, power returns. And just as nature teaches, so too may you rest tonight. Secure in the rhythm. Safe in the cycle. Knowing that the world holds you, as surely as the forest holds its roots, as surely as dawn follows night. Sleep well. The story has closed. The night is yours. And the cycle will begin again.